I'm a 32-year-old man, married to my wife, Hannah, 30F, for 6 years. We have one son, Mason, who just turned 3. We live a quiet, modest life in upstate New York. I work in IT, she teaches 5th grade. We're not flashy people. We're the kind of couple that buys the same groceries every week, argues about whose turn it is to fold laundry, and watches documentaries on Friday nights. We don't fight often. And when we do, it's never yelling or slam doors. Just quiet, tired disappointment. Until last week. Hannah has only met my dad 3 times. Once at our wedding, once when Mason was born, and once at a family barbecue 3 years ago that ended with my dad leaving halfway through after not feeling well. She's always known I have a distant relationship with him. That was the word I used. She didn't push. She just assumed we weren't close. What I never told her was why. I haven't spoken to my dad, Tom, 58M, in any meaningful way for almost a decade. He wasn't physically abusive. He never drank. He worked hard, paid the bills, stayed married to my mom. From the outside, he looked like a good father. But behind closed doors, he was cruel in quieter ways. He belittled me constantly growing up. He mocked my interests, called me weak, told me I'd never be a real man if I kept crying over nothing. When I got into art in high school, he ripped my sketchbook in half and told me to go draw feelings like a little girl somewhere else. He never laid a hand on me, but I would have preferred that, honestly. Bruises heal. The voice in your head that sounds like your dad? That sticks. I moved out at 18 and didn't look back. The problem was, I never told anyone the full truth, not my mom, not my younger sister Rachel, and definitely not Hannah. I didn't want to open that box. I didn't want to go through the pain of explaining what it's like to hate someone who everyone else insists is a good man who did his best. But silence has a shelf life. Last week, my sister Rachel called me in tears. Dad had a heart attack. He was stable, but it was serious. He'd asked for me in the hospital. I told her I wasn't going. She was shocked. Hurt. She said, "You don't have to forgive him, but he's our father. You'll regret it if he dies and you never said goodbye." I told her I already did say goodbye, 10 years ago. Hannah overheard that conversation. That night, after we put Mason to bed, she sat across from me on the couch and asked the question I'd dreaded for years. "Why do you hate your dad so much?" And for the first time in our marriage, I told her the truth. Hannah sat there on the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes locked on me like she was bracing for impact. I wanted to give her a softened version. I wanted to say, "He was just distant," or, "We weren't close." But she'd seen my face when Rachel called. She knew it was deeper. She deserved the truth. So I told her. I told her about how, as a kid, I would fake stomachaches to avoid spending time alone with my dad. How he used to call me a disappointment if I got a B on a test. How once, when I cried after my childhood dog died, he said, "Stop blubbering. It's just an animal. Be a man." I told her how he made me feel like I was always one mistake away from being nothing. That he didn't scream or hit, but everything he said chipped away at me, slowly, for years. Hannah listened, quiet the whole time, but something in her eyes started to shift. Not sympathy, confusion. When I was done, I waited. I thought she'd say, "I'm so sorry," or, "Now I understand." Instead, she asked, "But did he ever apologize?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, because the idea was ridiculous. My dad doesn't apologize. He doubles down. He blames. He rewrites history until you start wondering if you imagined it all. "No," I said. "Never." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person sitting in front of her. "So, you just cut him off? Completely? Without even trying to talk to him about it as an adult?" That hit harder than I expected. "I did try," I said. After college. I called him out once. Told him how he made me feel growing up. He said I was being too sensitive and that if I failed at life, it's on me. Then he told me to stop blaming him for my problems. Hannah was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up and said, "You should go see him." I blinked. What? He had a heart attack. He asked for you? Maybe he knows he messed up and doesn't know how to say it. Maybe you need to say it for him. And here's where it all cracked open. I said, "You're not hearing me. I don't want to see him. He doesn't deserve my time." And she said, "No, you're not hearing me. You're a father now. You don't just get to cut people out without trying." I stared at her like she'd slapped me. So now I'm a bad son and a bad father? She looked like she regretted saying it instantly. But the damage was done. She walked out of the room. And that night, for the first time in our marriage, I slept on the couch without her asking me to. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing her say it. "You're a father now. You don't just get to cut people out without trying." The words rattled in my chest like something untrue, but familiar. Because they didn't sound like Hannah. They sounded like Rachel. Like Mom. Like every person who looked at my dad and saw a good provider, instead of the man who dismantled me piece by piece. By morning, Hannah still wasn't talking to me. She made breakfast for Mason and left early for work, leaving me with this numb, heavy quiet. I took the day off and sat with it, like maybe silence would deliver an answer. Around noon, Rachel called again. "He's asking for you," she said, voice tight. "He keeps checking the door like you're going to walk in." I said nothing. Then she added, quieter, "He cried last night, Ben." My father never cried. Ever. Not when his own father died. Not when our house flooded. Not even when Mom had her cancer scare 6 years ago. And that got under my skin in a way I hate admitting. Because if he was crying, maybe Hannah was right. Maybe there was something left to say. Or maybe, and this felt worse, I needed something I didn't even understand. So I went. I told no one. I didn't text Hannah. I didn't even answer when Rachel called to check if I was coming. I just got in the car, drove to the hospital, and walked in like I had permission from my own mind. When I saw him, he looked smaller. Not just physically, though the hospital gown and oxygen line made him look deflated, but spiritually. Like someone who was still holding on to pride, but barely. He blinked when he saw me. Then looked away. I stood there. The silence was thick. Then, finally, he muttered, "Didn't think you'd come." I shrugged. Neither did I. There was a long pause. He stared at the ceiling. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You turned out okay." I laughed, sharp, humorless. "Despite you?" He flinched. But then, to my shock, he nodded. "Yeah. Maybe." There it was. Not an apology. Not really. But as close as he was capable of. And somehow, that was worse. Because it wasn't enough, but it was something. We sat in that half-acceptance, half-hurt silence for 20 minutes. Then I left. He didn't ask me to stay. When I got home, Hannah was already there. She looked up from the couch when I walked in and said quietly, "Did you go?" I nodded. "Yeah." She stood. Walked over. "How did it feel?" And I wanted to tell her it gave me peace. That it healed something. But all I could say was, "Empty." She just said, "Good." And walked away. After I came back from the hospital, things didn't get better. They just got quieter. Hannah and I didn't fight. We didn't even talk much. We functioned. We fed Mason. We watched cartoons with him. We folded laundry. We asked each other if the dishwasher had been run. But all of it felt like a performance, like we were pretending to be a couple for the benefit of our kid. That night in bed, I tried to reach for her hand. She didn't pull away. But she didn't squeeze back either. It's a strange kind of heartbreak, when the person you love is still next to you, but somehow not with you anymore. The next morning, I found her at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and that tight look she gets when she's made a decision. "I need to ask you something," she said without looking up. "Okay. If I hadn't overheard that call, would you have ever told me the truth about your dad?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. Because the answer was obvious. I hadn't told her for 10 years. "No," I said finally. "I don't think I would have." She nodded, like she already knew. "Why?" And there it was again, the question behind all the tension. "I didn't want you to see me as broken," I said. "I've worked so hard to be different from him. To build something with you. Something safe." She looked at me for a long time. "Ben, I don't need you to be perfect. But I do need you to let me see you. You've kept this part of you locked away for our entire marriage. And when I finally found the key, it was by accident." That stung. Because she wasn't wrong. "I didn't know how," I said quietly. "I didn't even know where to begin." She reached across the table. Finally, she touched my hand, gently. "I get that. I really do. But this isn't just about your dad anymore. It's about us. And the way you shut me out." I nodded. I didn't try to defend myself. I think part of me knew this reckoning had been waiting to happen. I just thought I could outrun it. Then she said, "I need time, Ben. Not forever. But I need to step back and figure out if we're actually in this together. Or if you're always going to carry the worst parts of your past by yourself." That hurt more than anything my dad ever said to me. She packed a bag that afternoon. Not to leave permanently, just to stay with her sister for a few days. She kissed Mason goodbye and promised she'd see him soon. She didn't promise me anything. Now the house feels like a museum. Full of memories but no life. And for the first time in years, I'm really alone. Hannah was gone for 4 days. I didn't call. Not because I didn't want to, I did, 100 times. But I knew this time, I couldn't talk my way out of it. This wasn't a fight. It was a fracture. And you don't fix a fracture by pretending it didn't happen. Mason kept asking where Mommy was. I told him the truth. "She's with Aunt Lila, but she'll be back soon." Saying that out loud hurt more than I expected. Because for the first time, I understood that soon is a gamble. Nothing is guaranteed. Not when love has bruises under the skin you never acknowledged. On the 5th night, she came home. Not with bags or declarations, but quietly. She walked in, set her keys on the counter, and said, "Can we talk after Mason's asleep?" I nodded. That night, we sat on the couch like two people waiting for a storm to decide if it's coming back or not. "I thought a lot while I was gone," she said. "About you. Your dad. Our marriage." I waited. She took a breath. "You were right to cut him off. I get that now. I kept trying to fit your pain into my framework, where every wound deserves a second chance. But some people don't earn those chances. And I was wrong to push you." The relief I felt was immediate, but short-lived. "Still," she continued, "I'm not just mad that you didn't see him. I'm hurt that you didn't think I could handle the truth. That you carried it all on your own for so long." I nodded, eyes stinging. "I didn't want it to become our burden. I thought protecting you meant keeping it buried." She leaned forward, her voice cracking. "Ben, marriage isn't about protecting me from your pain. It's about letting me into it. That's how we build trust. And right now, that trust is shaky." I didn't argue. I just said, "I want to fix that. Whatever it takes." We sat in silence, letting that promise hang in the room like something fragile. Then she asked, "What do you want to do about your dad?" I looked at the floor. "He's not dying yet. But I think I said what I needed to say. I think I'm done." She nodded. Okay. Then she did something that made me break down. She reached for my hand, and this time she squeezed. Hard. Steady. Like maybe we were going to be okay after all. I know this won't tie itself into a neat little bow. Healing rarely does. But I finally told the truth. I finally let her see the parts of me I was ashamed of. And maybe, just maybe, that's the first step in breaking the cycle, so my son never has to write a story like this about me.